When dealing with Charles Band, things are gonna get a little strange. And Blood Dolls is certainly one of those cases. This is one of the only films I would say it's better to go in blind. Not really knowing what you're in for, but having some idea of what is in store. So, with that in mind, my take on Blood Dolls is Charles Band wanted a movie that represented him the same way Beetlejuice represented Tim Burton. And if you go into this movie with that in mind, it is both very eye opening for people who don't know anything about Charles Band and very fitting. You may even enjoy it a bit more. There's there's just so much here that's, oh my god. There's a mansion with a butler who's also a clown with sharpened teeth. There's a little person that gets a band going by electrifying the floor, and that doesn't even prepare you for who runs this madhouse. And if you were to say Charles Band, I would have assumed so as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually his house. It just somehow fits for a man who produces what he does. I'd have to say, by the end of this film, I have never laughed the way that this film makes me laugh. It was pure joy, but also entirely maniacal. It actually drove me to have an evil genius laugh, and not like out of trying to get one going. It just naturally happened. I have never had a film do that to me before. I kind of love this because of that. And there's always been a quality issue with the films that Charles puts out because he typically goes on the lower end of budgets, or at least his films look like they are at the lower end of budgets. In this case, there is one effect that is used throughout the entirety of the film that the more I think about it, the more I can't find problems with it. It is surprisingly perfect. And it involves our main character and a certain effect that's done with this main character. Now, granted, when you see the whole person, it doesn't really work. But when you get those shots of when he's just talking or sitting or something like that, there's an effect that's going on that, honestly, when I look at what is done, it is surprisingly effective. Now, I must admit, there are problems, and they are easy to pick out, and you'd swear they were almost intentional. Somehow, well, I can't tell if it's just restrictions of budget or if this was all intentional. There are certain things that Charles Band does in all his films that you kind of see them almost as cliches. And if Charles Band was going to make a quintessential film that was going to be his Beetlejuice, it's almost a requirement that he has those. So I can't say that he just did this because of laziness. I think he actually chose specific problems to have in the film because they're kind of very easy to pick out. It's almost as though they've been amplified slightly so that you do pick up on them, you don't miss them. So I think that this was an artistic decision made by him. And I have to say that these characters that are presented are surprisingly good. This is probably the best writing I've ever seen from Charles Band. I was completely transfixed by the interactions between the characters. Two characters specifically, but there are others that are involved that Honestly, this is probably the best film I've ever seen from Charles Band. And when I talk about the problems in Charles Band's typical films, somehow or another, I just don't care about the problems because I'm blown away by the achievements he made in this film. Now, there are lots of directors who can do really great work, but for Charles Band to put out something this good, that's really an achievement for him. I give the film a 9 out of 10. And I think that if you're a Charles Band fan and you haven't seen Blood Dolls, you should. If you are a horror fan and you kind of know about Charles Band, you should see Blood Dolls. If you just are intrigued, see Blood Dolls. This was really good. As for the 31-day challenge, I get to mark off a 1999 film. That's good. I've got a Killer Doll movie. So those are good. That's pretty much what I got. Yeah, I really don't have anything else for the 31-day challenge, but it was better than my last watch. So, yeah. So Blood Dolls. It's a great movie by Charles Band. And on that note, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.